pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The Danvers Public Schools mission statement is, Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. Is anybody out here taping the meeting? Anybody? Anybody? No? Good? All right. Then with that, we'll go to items of interest.
I am all set for this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody up here? We good?
Good. Good.
Anybody out there? No? Moving right along. Student representative.
Yes, and tonight we have both of our student representatives. So we have Cynthia Boyd and Clea Matt, who will talk about what is our strategic plan in action in our schools, in our 7 schools, and then they will be meeting with the policy subcommittee in December.
Sweet. So starting off with Great Oak, students are experiencing direct instruction on SEL strategies and working with our physical education, art, and music teachers to practice mindfulness and self-regulation. Students have practiced deep breathing, guided meditation, and body awareness checks. Student engagement at Great Oak is evident throughout the day. One highlight is our first grade students who recently completed a unit on geometry. Students had to learn characteristics of several shapes, including a triangle, a rhombus, a hexagon, and a square. To show their understanding, they had to make a hexagon as many ways as they could using smaller shapes. The students first built a model with manipulatives, then drew and colored on a separate paper, helping them to make the leap from concrete shapes to abstract concepts. Some students found as many as 8 different ways to construct a hexagon.
At Highlands, in kindergarten at Highlands, all 3 classrooms use picture books to help fill students' toolkits with strategies on how to handle different situations. One example would be how to share materials while sharing them during a math lesson. If one of your friends has something you want or need to use, what words or actions can you take to advocate for what you need in a safe and responsible way? There are many books available in our library that help teachers address many social, emotional learning situations. Our students have been engaging in makerspace activities once a month during their library time. This month's theme was electricity. All students K through 5 participate in makerspace, and they are extremely excited and engaged in the opportunity to solve a problem and be hands-on with the material.
At Riverside, similar to Thorpe School, morning announcements are sounding a bit different. Instead of having a moment of silence, students are now taking a mindful minute. During this time, a chime is rung, and the school takes a full minute to begin their day in a calm way. Teachers and students even take a few deep breaths during this minute and think about what kind of day they hope to have. It is a school-wide experience which unifies the school community even more.
At Smith, they say, as part of our ongoing work to support social-emotional learning at Smith, staff have been creating developmentally appropriate toolkits. At our most recent faculty meeting, staff proudly shared their SEL's toolkits and how students are accessing them in the classroom. Included in these kits are both hands-on tools, like breathing balls and tactile pillows, and cognitive tools, brain teasers, I Spy books, and coloring. Teachers have also worked to identify calming corners and break spots in the classroom. The zones of regulation is being taught in a number of classrooms by classroom teachers and the social worker. This self-regulation program teaches children to become aware of how they are feeling, like calm, anxious, mad, or sad, and then give them tools and strategies to change those feelings when necessary. There are 4 colored zones: blue, green, yellow, and red, each of which represents different feelings. In addition, The Way I Feel by Janine Kane, which I'm pretty sure I just said that name wrong, my apologies, and has helped students learn to associate specific feelings with their corresponding zones.
At Thorpe, they continue to prioritize social-emotional learning for its students. The district is also focused on providing a strong emotional learning climate for the faculty. At Thorpe, we incorporate this goal into our work at the beginning of each professional meeting. A member of Thorpe's Leading Together team plans and leads the staff in specific protocols. These icebreakers set the tone for the work we are about to engage in, as staff learn about each other's personal strengths, preferences, and work styles. These activities also provide an opportunity for staff to reflect on a unified topic before they begin the work of improving student successes and engagement. This Wednesday, the 21st, the students in kindergarten and first grade, will gather to celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday together during Thorpe's annual Thanksgiving feast. And at HRMS in November, students made napkin rings, cards, and placemats for the annual Maduke's Thanksgiving dinner. Students also created hundreds of these items to bring extra tier to the dinner. Our school also raised over $200 for this event. Examples of student engagement include students in engineering the future, designing and building bridges out of wood. Once bridges were complete, students conducted stress tests by placing weight on the bridges. Some were even strong enough to hold students on top of them. In 6th grade, science students studied and dissected perchfish and lampreys. Students were able to be hands-on in learning about these creatures and their biological systems. Lastly, our Hawks Creation Station in the library has been busy hosting a pottery workshop in the HRMS Sewing Club, which is called In Stitches.
And here at DHS, students continue to be engaged and motivated here and are becoming more college and career aware. 200 students attended the Mass STEM Hub College and Career Day, learning about college and career opportunities in STEM, while students in AP Chemistry visited Millport Sigma, a leading supplier in the life sciences industry, as part of the Mass Bio Career Day. Students in AP Literature have been regularly commenting in the New York Times and recently received a shout-out for their contributions as an example of how making student work authentic can result in increased student engagement and motivation. And the DHS Academy Theater put on 4 amazing performances of Les Mis this weekend and is one of the many ways students are working on social-emotional learning competencies such as self and social awareness.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you very much.
That's great. That's our first dual
Yes,
student
presentation this year.
student presentation. So good job, guys.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to now switch to information from the superintendent and
Thank you.
at
Our
Thorpe
first-
School.
Yes, our Thorpe School. We have our Damnedest Pride presentation for November, and our Thorpe School will be presenting about our new science curriculum.
Good evening, everyone. So as Lisa just said, that we are teaching a new, is this on?
Yes. Yep, it's fine.
We have a new science curriculum at the elementary schools this year, and it's really my pleasure to introduce tonight 2 of my teachers, a kindergarten teacher and a 5th grade teacher, and some of their students. I have to say these 2 teachers, Annie Tricka, the kindergarten teacher, and Lorena Rico, not only share a passion for science, they have also share a wonderful friendship. So it's really wonderful to introduce them and their students tonight. So come on up.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Thank you, school committee members, for having us. Thank you, Dr. Dana. I'm Lorena Rico, 5th grade teacher. This is
Andy Tricker, kindergarten teacher.
And what we wanted to do is just give you the agenda for tonight and say that we're going to do a little game called Kids Say the Darndest Things. And if you get that reference, you're at least my age or older. So it's a show from the 50s. We're going to do a brief overview of how science is being taught and do a little slideshow of some of the kids in action. So first of all, we want to introduce our panel here. I have with me 5th grader Katie Key. Can you wave hi, Katie? Great, thank you. And Anish Patel, wave hi. And I've got a great cheerleader in the audience with me tonight, Madeline Hillier. Thanks for being here, Madeline. She's going to cheer us on. And Mrs. Trick is going to introduce the kindergarten.
And I have a couple of superstar science kids. See all that? Lux Mahan and Hunter Ware.
So we're going to ask them some questions, and we have not rehearsed at all. So that's the thing about Kids Say the Darndest Things. So let's see what they have to say. We'll start with kindergarten, and Mrs. Trick is going to ask them questions, and they can step right up here, and we can adjust the
wanna-
microphone for them.
You want to come up first, Lux? Okay.
This is
All
been
right.
done
So
like that.
in our class, the type of, in our class, the type of scientists we are engineers. And so, Lux, can you tell them what does an engineer do?
They build stuff that people need, like trucks and houses.
They do. And do they if they find a problem, what do they try to
They
do?
solve it.
They do. They try to solve it. All right. Thank you. All right. Now we'll let Hunter have a turn. Hunter, did we make anything in science? Can you tell them, honey?
We made pinball machines and
we added lots more stuff to make it official, and
How do you remember some of the things that we had to do? Like, what was one of the first problems that we had to solve? How do we get the pinball to move? Remember? What
we
do
had-
we need to add?
we need to add a little
Launcher?
launcher, and
We changed directions.
and we put a little like
We have
popsicle-
flippers.
We have flippers, and we have a bumper and all that doohickeys and stuff.
Great. Awesome. All right. Thank you, buddy. And then, you know what? Why don't you come up more, Lex? Is there any reason, think about it, Lex, is there any reason that you like science at school?
That we make pinball machines and that we do something different to our pinball machines almost every day.
Me too. Nice job, honey. Thank you. All right. This is a tough one, Hunter. We haven't practiced this. Why do you think we do science at school?
To make people learn about science, and to make people, like, if they want to be scientists, they can do it because, teachers, they can teach science and stuff, and they can do all that stuff.
Right. And do we ever give up in our class?
No, we do not. We never, never.
That's right. Even when it's hard, we do not.
We do not even give up.
You two were fantastic. Awesome.
Thank you,
Nice
kindergarten.
job.
No, thank you, kindergarten. All right, great. I'll ask Katie to come up. Come on up, Katie. Can you tell us anything about any of the experiments that you've done at school?
We've been studying molecules.
We have been studying molecules, yep. Is there one experiment that you could remember?
When
I can help you jog your memory. How about the one where we had the food coloring dye on the chromatography paper? Do you remember that? Can you tell the school committee and the audience a little bit about that?
we put a strip of paper into water and the food coloring went up the paper.
What did we find out?
There was red dye.
There was red dye in that food coloring. We didn't want red dye to be there, did we? We've been pretending to be food scientists for a fictitious food company, so that was great. Do you like science?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I wanted you to be here. Can you say why you like it? What is it about science that you like?
It's interesting.
It is interesting. Thank you, Katie. I'm going to have you step down for just a second. Anish, come on up. I'm going to ask you the same question. You like science? That's why you're here. Great. What do you like about the science we've been doing?
I like how we can have new experiences every day because we do different experiments and we get to do something new for a change.
Thank you. That's true. And I'm going to be talking about that too, about the experiences and the experiments. So that's great. What's the best part, you think, about learning about science?
The experiments.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree. Actually pretending that we're in that lab and doing the experiments. Great. I'm going to have you step down and ask Katie another question. Did anything surprise you this year about 5th grade science? Did anything surprise you?
We did a lot of experiments.
We did too. So many experiments, didn't we? Yeah, that was a great part, how many we got to do. Do you think you could explain one thing that you've learned?
That there are different kinds of molecules.
Yeah, we learned so much about the molecules and all of their different attributes and everything, right? Thank you. I'm going to ask Anish too. Could you explain one thing that you learned about science?
I learned all substances have molecules, and all molecules are different from each other. And if each substance, if a mixture has 2 different types of molecules or more, and a single substance can only have 1.
Thank you so much. Good job. That's it for our kids. Thank you. You guys have a seat. I'm going to do the rest of the show. All right. So I hope you enjoyed having our students here because they're the real ones in the trenches with us every day doing the work. And we're just going to talk, like I said, a little bit about how we're teaching science. So I'm going to see if I can see that from here. So I wanted to start with a little bit of the philosophy behind the science curriculum that we've just been implementing. Last year was pilot year, and this year we've been implementing it. So of all the curriculum known to me, and I've been around for a while, Amplify Science is really the truest of constructivism, and it's a philosophy wherein students construct their own understanding and knowledge through experiencing things and reflecting on these experiences. So that's why I was so glad that Anish Patel had said, well, we've had a lot of experiences, because for science, it's the one greatest platform for constructivism, because the experiments themselves become the experience that the children are having. And Danvers students are having the experience of being scientists in really rich, true, engaging, and interesting ways from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. So we're really excited about that. And just to give you an example of Amplify using that theory of constructivism, I can tell you that all of the 5th graders in Danvers, not just at Thorpe, but district-wide, will have the experience of pretending to be a food scientist. And they will work for a fictitious food company with assignments from the president of the company to perform various lab tests and activities. And students got so excited about this. From time to time, they would ask me, is the president real? Is this a real email? You know, when are we getting our paychecks? They were really, really engaged. It was great. The unit culminates in the assignment of making a salad dressing that doesn't separate and doesn't have sediments. Along the way, learning about science concepts, including the properties of various substances, solid and liquid, properties of molecules, especially how they can attract, the mixture of liquids and solids and liquids and substances that are soluble or not. So it was an incredible experience for me to learn it and to teach it and to really engage with students on it. And it was just fabulous. We ended our unit the other day with our salad dressing that we all got to taste. So it was great. And we do have balanced science blocks, which is just a terrific way to teach, and it also matches up with our balanced literacy blocks and balanced math blocks. So the Amplify curriculum uses balanced science blocks, which vary the experiences that allow students to construct knowledge and understanding. Any block could consist of a combination of any of these following. So teacher-student discussion, direct teaching, nonfiction reading, it's all in the curriculum. The books are brilliant. They're on level, and the kids read them, partner read them, they read them independently, and it really hammers home everything that's in the experience and in the experiments are followed up by the text. They do the hands-on experiments. They have higher level questioning, which is outlined exactly in the teacher manual, which is also online, so you always know exactly what you want the children to be learning and how to get it out of them through questioning. We do writing scientific explanations. So that's fabulous as well, because we teach the science in 5th grade for several weeks at a time, and we don't want to just dump our writing program. So every week within the science, there's a ton of writing, especially the scientific explanations, drawing diagrams and evaluating using different models and different technology. And the kids are actually doing those evaluations, which is fabulous. The technology that's built into the curriculum has been absolutely incredible for the students and for us teachers as well. We use computer simulations. The teachers and students use them. We use tons of the projections that are right in the curriculum. We project up to the smart board photos, diagrams, workbook pages. We teachers have online access to the lesson plans and online help, so that's fabulous. And then Mrs. Trick is going to talk about the science team and their role in all of this.
Yep. I thought that would be a little bit bigger.
Oh, I know. I know. It's hard to see.
To do it. I've always loved science, always known how exciting it is for kids, how engaged they are in it. All you have to do is say science. And they're all in. So a team of teachers, there was one teacher from each grade in each school, pretty much. And so, as you said, we implemented it last year, and it one unit, And now this year, we're acting as liaisons between our school for women's professional development and just like little questions for supplies and stuff. And it is, it's a lot to navigate for teachers. So we've already gone through it once so we can help the teachers in our buildings. Even just little things like, oh, I need flour for tomorrow. Well, if okay, well, next time look in this part and you'll know what to do. So to help support them. And we're meeting like maybe once every 6 weeks or so, I would say, and discussing how it's going, how we can support each other, report cards, things that come up. Anything else, Julie?
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
So we just threw in some pictures of the students actually engaged in working, and so here we go with some pictures.
No.
That's it, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you to our Thorpe scientists, and our school committee may have some comments or questions for you.
Okay, ready, scientists?
Mary Beth, you look like you have lots of them.
No, I first want to thank you all for coming tonight. You guys did a great job presenting, and your love for science is certainly contagious. But no, it looks like a great program. The hands-on learning, I would say, is really engaging for the students. I'm glad that this curriculum has come into the schools now, because I do think it will engage more students and it will help them understand it more. So thank you.
Eric?
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same thing. Looking at the photographs and listening to the kids, there's the hands-on aspect of really getting to try experiments, and those were things I don't remember. Of course, I went to school when things were still black and white, but we didn't do anything like that. Even with what technology we had, there was not a lot of hands-on stuff in the early grades. So that's really exciting that they get to do something so engaging at an early level. So yeah, it seems like a great curriculum.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. Thank you very much. I just wish you brought one of your pinball machines in so we could have played with it. It would have made the meeting a lot more fun. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Next time.
Yeah, no, I'd say the same thing, and I think we talked about it before. I mean, the culture of experimentation, learning, being inquisitive, and then taking that forward as you go through not just your academic career, but through life, is just going to serve you so well, and that is fantastic. So thank you all very, very much. That's great.
I agree with everything that they said, and I just went to check out to see when Art Linkletter was doing that, and it was from 1945 to 1969, so it could have been any one of those. We could be anywhere in there. But 69, we watched it in 69. But kids, you guys did a great job.
They did a
Yeah.
fantastic
I want you to come back and do it again.
All
All right? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I just want to thank the teachers, and I want to thank the families that came out tonight and brought their children. We really appreciate it. They really do steal the show always, and thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We'll take a moment to transition with our families. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Probably an erector set or something cool like that. Speaking of the 60s.
Yes. Yeah. Very good. Thank you so much. Great. So next we have under information from the superintendent, our MASC, our Massachusetts School Committee Association updates. And it's been a while since Mike Gilbert has been here when he did some work with our school committee and I think the governance program on one part of that in the last couple of years. So we've asked tonight Mike Gilbert and Dorothy Presser to come to give us an overview of the work with the policy. I shared with Dorothy and Mike that from their work a year ago, it did take us a little time, but we worked on it last summer and have been taking each part of the policy and an opportunity for Mike to also introduce Dorothy to us as Mike gets ready for retirement. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to be here again. It has been a while. And I am retiring at the end of December after 22 years with the association, 30 years as a public official. And I'm going to go do some fishing in Florida and chase my grandkids around. Dorothy Presser joined the association 3 years ago? 5 years ago? Has it really been that long? 5 years ago?
Fastest 5 years of my life.
Dorothy is a 20-plus year member of the Linfield School Committee. She's been working with us on the governance project. And she lives in Linfield, so it was a natural fit for her to, she's been working in Central Mass while she's been working with the association, but she's going to take the northeast part of the state. And she will continue to do her governance work around the state. Since my internal work inside of MASC has been in the policy area for about the last 7 or 8 years, we've hired a woman by the name of Kathleen Kelly, who will be taking over the policy role and be covering sort of central eastern Massachusetts because she lives in Cambridge. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to sort of tell you how we got here is that in the end of 2015 and beginning of 2016, we had hired Dorothy, we had hired Tracy Novick, and we said, these people have to go out and do policy work. One of the things we hadn't done in a while was gone through our own reference manual in the same fashion that we go through policy manuals with you guys. So we did that. It took us almost a year and a half to get through the entire process. But we did that, and that resulted in the June 2017 policy newsletter, which had a raft of policy changes in it that my understanding is from the conversation I had with Dr. Dana is that you've been slogging through that on your own as well. Most of the changes in there are language changes. We sort of cleaned up archaic language that was in the policy manual. Some of those policies hadn't had language changed since the 60s or 70s. And so a lot of it was that. I'll give you an example. When we first started writing policy in the 70s as an association, one of the things that we would do is we would write policy and we'd write regulations to go with it, because at that time, school committees were doing those things as well. The nomenclatures have changed in that we don't really do regulations and we don't do procedures. Those belong to administration. Regulations we now think of as, oh, that's a state thing. So every place we had the word regulations in the policy manual, we changed it to procedure, because that's what the school district was looking at. You had a policy and you had the procedure that implemented the policy. So from that perspective, those were the major changes that we made. And so I know that looks like a daunting list, but most of it were minor word changes. There were some updates to the open meeting law and some updates to the public records law and conflict of interest law that we incorporated into those. So those are the major changes that we've made. We've also, again, additionally done some other legal changes over the last couple of years. And so in a couple of cases, you may be looking at things in that June 7, 2017 list that we've also changed since then because of law changes that have happened. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, it will be ongoing because we always discover things that could be updated and changed, so that even that cleanup, along with any changes that come from regulation from DESE or legislation, continue to be issues that we want to keep keep ahead of, or at least keep not too far behind.
So with that, I'd open it up to any questions that you have, because I know that I'm here to hear from you to see how you've been going through this and see if there's any way in which we can help.
Dave?
You want me to take that? I thought so. Like you said, we've been kind of chunking through it. We're getting to, I think, D and E today. So I think by February, we'll be completed going through the entire changes, all of the changes, I should say. You'd mentioned that there are new changes that have been made since what we received. Do we have others updates, and are they in the information here so we know that we're looking at the most up-to-date information?
So I could take that one. No, but that was a very good reminder that Mike just gave. So we will go back before our next policy subcommittee meeting, because is it, to Dorothy and Mike, is it usually like June on a yearly basis, and then mid-year you'll send out another new policy newsletter?
It varies, depends on two things. Depends on what the legislature does and when they do it, and then it depends on our legal counsel, because one of the things we do is we'll write the policy, then we give it to our legal counsel and have him review it. Sometimes we will go to outside counsel for certain things. For example, we recently did a crowdfunding policy. That crowdfunding policy was reviewed by the general counsel to the Ethics Commission to ensure that everything that we were doing was in line with the ethics laws, because it really was about employees and their use of crowdfunding to raise funds, and we didn't want to put people in jeopardy with the Ethics Commission. So we had the Ethics Commission review that policy, and they made some minor changes to it as well.
Thank you. All of their updates are on the MASC website, so we'll do that before our next meeting, and we'll go through to make sure that any of those other updates that we're including them now.
That'd be great.
Good.
And the ones that we've approved already,
If
A
they-
through
yes.
D, if anything had changed there between the time it was put out and the time we approved it,
We'll catch up.
that'd be great to be able to
Good.
catch up on that.
So when you subscribe to our online hosting service, so as you make those changes, send them to us. Anne Marie Martin, who is our membership coordinator in the office, handles the updates with our third-party provider. So you send the changes to her, and I would request that you don't send a large bulk of changes. Send them as you're doing a couple of things at a time, because if you send us the entire manual, our third-party provider is going to charge us, and then we're going to have to charge you to do a conversion again, and that's another $3,500, and we don't want to do that.
Not a conversion, right, we're doing that. We will start to do that then for our last 2 months. Thank
We'll
you.
chunk it to you, yes.
One thing at a time.
Anne Marie is
Yeah.
terrific, and if you can just let her know what the changes are in each policy, she does it really quickly. She's really
And overall, we've been happy with what you guys have put into the policies. So, it's just mostly semantics, language changes, like you said. So we haven't, I don't think so far, we've made any changes to what you've recommended.
Great.
I'm sure there'll be some minor changes along the way, but hopefully that makes it easier on your end as well.
Yes.
Good. And we have it all in a Google Doc, so we'll be able to easily send that along.
Great.
Good.
We, just so you know, we require Word documents.
Thank you. This is good. Yes, this is why we had you
glad
here
you
today.
came.
And,
All
and
right.
that's not us, that's our third-party provider, who's sort of a little bit behind the wave in terms of Google Docs and other opportunities.
Great.
They will then turn that Word file into a database format, and their software only uses Word.
Okay. So Anne Marie Martin in Word documents.
All right, so we've been doing everything wrong.
Diane has that all written down.
Can we get rid of all these things and get something that has Word? Anybody else have any questions, comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Everybody good? All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Mike, for everything you've done over the past 22 years.
We do have a little token of
Enjoy your
appreciation.
retirement.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
And Dorothy will look forward to seeing you for the next 22 years, so that's good.
I have big shoes to fill, definitely, but I'm very much looking forward to working
Great.
with all of you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
you.
Thank you,
you.
Mike and Dorothy. Thank you. Okay, next we have our annual
Thank you.
Danvers Cares update,
Wishes.
and Lyle Harrod is here. We did attach a couple, like 3 different things for Danvers Cares for you, but you do have the presentation, And Lyle's passing out a one-page overview of the work for you also.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Lyle.
Yes.
You're like a student.
Yes, you will be quizzed.
Thank you. Good night.
Won't need the step stool tonight.
Oh, yes, we can switch that in.
Good evening, everybody. It's always a pleasure to come and get a chance to come and speak with the school committee and share some of the work that we've been doing with Danvers Cares. It's been a really, really busy summer and fall, so I'm excited to tell you a little bit about what we've been up to. So first, as you guys have in front of you, and as you know from our presentation a couple of months ago, we finished up our strategic plan this past spring. And we, loud and clear heard from the community that we should be focusing on positive youth development. We took the tact of focusing on two specific aspects of positive youth development. Social emotional learning is obviously a key concept. You've been hearing a lot about it that's happening in the schools. So Danvers Cares is reinforcing a lot of that and carrying that into the community, into families as well. Developmental assets. That model is essentially a nice sort of open way to connect the work that people are doing to the community, to the business, to businesses, to families, to neighborhoods, to really just looking at raising kids as a holistic system, that everybody sort of pitches in, and it takes a village. So next, this is another image you guys have all likely seen by now. This is the Castle's SEL core competencies. So you'll see the competencies in the middle, but tonight I just want to point out the rings on the outside there, just to sort of show what the goal of Danvers Cares' work is. You guys have already been hearing tonight, right? That first piece, the inside ring. Is where the social emotional learning is being taught in the classrooms by the faculty, by the teachers. So that's the on the ground teaching people what sort of competencies they should be developing. Next, school-wide practices and policies. That's sort of where you all come in, where the administrator, school committee, that's all the stuff that we were just talking about, right? And then so the third rung out, family and community partnerships. That is, that's where Danvers Cares lives and breathes, right? It's the goal is to take what is happening on those inner two rungs and make sure that's being carried out in the community as well. Because you can spend all day, hammering into kids all the competencies that they should know, but if they're not comfortable practicing them out and if they're not given opportunities to develop them outside of the school environment, it's not going to be as effective. So I'm just going to go through just a couple sort of program examples, and I do want you to just keep in mind some of the core competencies as we go through self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Those are the core competencies you've been hearing about. And I think that a summer jobs program is a perfect example of that. This is our third year that we've done the Danvers Cares Summer Jobs Program. This year we had 7 Danvers teens work for 20 hours a week at 3 different job sites this year. We added in the Danvers YMCA as a job site. The Falcon Fun Camp is one of our original partners through the rec department, as well as DCAT. So yeah, for the photos on the bottom, you have Adrienne. She's doing some editing for one of the programs at DCAT over the summer. Top right, you have Sky. She's giving some instructions as she leads a group of campers in an activity that she created for her the Teens Healthy Activities Day that they ran for everybody. Then bottom right is Shirok, and that's Shirok sort of refereeing and overseeing a game that he created himself as well. So it wasn't just an opportunity to gain all those work and career readiness skills, although there certainly was that. But you're also putting them into leadership roles. You're giving them a lot of responsibility for a teenager, for anybody really, and they really step up to the plate. Next, the outdoor skills workshops. This is a new partnership with Endicott Park through the rec department. They have a wonderful summer camp program. It runs for 3 weeks in August called the Explorers program. There's juniors and seniors, so it runs from kindergarten through 8th grade. And Erica Moretti, she's the naturalist over at Endicott Park, and myself, we both went through an outdoor skills and leadership training through the Appalachian Mountain Club this past spring. So we brought the skills and the skills and the lessons that we learned directly from the wilderness to these youth right here. So they were doing the exact same things that we were doing during that adult training. And you'd think that you'd have to sort of simplify things, but that wasn't the case at all. The bottom right, you'll see that's a group of explorers. They had tied their own bowline knot, which is no easy task if you know how to tie a knot like that. So that was really successful. That was an opportunity for them they didn't get it on the first try. Not many people could get a knot like that on the first try, right? But encouraging them to continue trying, and it does take multiple tries, and many of them got it and were able to replicate that afterwards. It's a little bit more. They also set up some backpacking tents. So we talked about just some outdoor survival skills. That's them in the top right in one of the tents that they set up themselves. And then we also discussed leave no trace outdoor ethical principles. Anyone who's a hiker has probably heard that term before. It's a system of outdoor ethics, but guess what? Outdoor ethics are pretty close to indoor ethics, if you will. It's the same things that we're talking about with our kids, and it also leave no trace. I always like to point out is a really great example of responsible decision making, which is one of the core competencies. Because if you know that you're not just impacting, number one, you have to make sure you're not that you're only having a positive impact on yourself, but also on the other people that you're hiking with, potential hikers down the road, the environment, on a micro and macro level. So it really does get people thinking about how they impact the world around them. Project Adventure, they've been just such a great partner over the past few years. I'm sure everyone has interacted with them in some way around the Danvers Public Schools. This year, we were able to really develop a few new programs that we were really happy with. Just to briefly go over them, Atlas and Athena, that we'll talk about that in a minute. That's our mentoring program. We had the mentor leaders, the teen leaders, do a team leadership development retreat before they actually led the program. The Drive program, that focused on confidence building and getting people to step outside of their comfort zone. And our youth leadership groups at the high school and the middle school, they also did a joint retreat where they worked on group communication and group problem solving. And the wonderful thing about that is you could take a lot of the same elements when you see the course, right? You'll see the ropes, you'll see the same sort of setup for a lot of activities, but each time the facilitators do such a great job of working with the group, meeting them where they're at, and then furthering those specific goals. So they're really great at coming up with lesson plans that allow each group to work within their own dynamics and skill sets and comfort levels, and then help them expand those a little bit. Those are some pictures. Bottom far left is the middle schoolers and high schoolers at the retreat. The top middle, that's the Atlas and Athena leaders. Far right, also Atlas and Athena leaders. And the bottom in the large circle is all the Danvers High and middle school youth leaders. So just a great opportunity, not only to practice those skills, but also to build some camaraderie. Atlas and Athena, this is a program we've been running for many, many years here. It's just such a hit every single year. This year is one of the best in my tenure here. I was really, really super impressed with the youth leaders. They're junior and senior academic and athletic leaders chosen by their coaches and Andy St. Pierre. So this year, they're always good kids. We always have good leaders, but I do think that the Project Adventure retreat that we had the day before they started the program did really serve to motivate them, to give them a sense of purpose, and to get them fully invested and bought into the program before they had to go and can convince the freshman athletes to be just as invested. So this year we had fantastic retention. All the freshmen kept coming back every single lesson. And the seniors, the upperclassmen and the freshmen did really forge some really great bonds. And it was all through activities that are, although some of the curriculum is set up by it's prescribed by the Atlas and Athena program, the content is, but then the actual lessons are then created and embellished by the upperclassmen leaders themselves. So that makes it a little bit more interactive, a little bit more tailored specifically to our community. It's a little more fun. So like I said, we have our high school and youth leadership group and middle school youth leadership groups. They had a really busy recruiting season, and they've each run a few of their own activities this year. They raised some, the high school group raised over $100 for victims of the Lawrence gas explosion. That was the week after it happened, so they did a great job of throwing that together. They also spent a lot of time, they were really interested in getting involved with some of the younger folks. They had an interest in working with elementary school kids. So some of them have actually gone to Highlands and really enjoyed their time at the Monster Mash event when they were Highlands Bulldogs. And so they wanted to give back and they wanted to be a part of it again. So they contacted the PAC people over there and they got set up to volunteer. So we ended up having, I believe it's around 12 people go and volunteer. Oh, and then I should also say, I'm sorry, the bottom, the middle school there, the pledge to accept people for who they are. That's a concept that the middle schoolers came up with this year, just as a way of getting not just the group leaders, the youth leaders, the people who always go to the meetings involved in what they're doing in the messaging, but to get everybody in the entire school involved. That picture in the bottom right there, that's one of the posters. There was 3 of those completely filled up with names, and I have some other great photos too I can't share tonight, but just the amount of buy-in and the amount of interest that the youth have in promoting positive messaging and being a part of it really speaks to where our school and where our districts are at. Parent University, this is our second year doing this event. It's a half-day conference. This year we were sponsored by the East Boston Savings Bank and Beverly Bank, and the Danvers YMCA provided free childcare for everybody. So we were really, really happy to have Jim Vetter. He's the Executive Director of the Social Emotional Learning Alliance for Massachusetts. He gave the keynote address, and I'd say one of my main takeaways from his talk was that we all need to be leading by example, right? So it doesn't matter what we say if we aren't practicing what we preach, if we aren't doing all those things, youth can tell. So I think that really gives us, like the message, we always double down your efforts and make sure that we're doing the right thing as well as saying the right things. So also, just to talk about some of the other workshops, we had over 10 workshops this year. We covered a whole slew of topics that were chosen based on feedback from parents who attended last year. So we covered vaping, prescription drug abuse, engaging families in social emotional learning, creating a safe and supportive environment for LGBT youth, and a whole bunch more. If you're interested in finding out more about that event and about more of the workshops or who was leading them, you can still go to the Danvers Public Schools website, the Parent University tab under there. And then this one, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned this. This was a wonderful opportunity that we got at the end of this summer. We had a Leahy Community Investment Grant that allowed us to bring in 8 youth mental health first aid trainers to train nearly 120 Danvers Public School paraprofessionals and aides. So they attended a 2-day training as part of their professional development leading into this school year. If you are familiar with the youth mental health first aid training, people know essentially it's to bring that really sort of practical knowledge. It's not to turn everybody into a psychologist or everyone into a therapist. It's to allow people to help recognize those early signs and symptoms of mental health concerns, and then also help them understand the proper way to support those students, and then connect them and direct them to the help that they need. Just to give you a quick preview of what we have coming up, tomorrow actually we have the middle school is giving the youth risk behavior survey. We've been doing this every 2 years for quite some time now. That's going to be administered to the 7th grade tomorrow and the 8th grade on November 26th. I'll circle back with some feedback on that. Girls Circle, that'll be our second year running the Girls Circle program. That is a specific to middle school girls curriculum focused on expressing individuality. That curriculum is really based on a lot of social emotional learning concepts as well, with the goal of not only just sort of creating a safe and fun and open environment for middle school girls to discuss some of the current topics that they face, but also to to build a strong relationship with the advisors are typically young adults, young adult women, and we have just really gotten a lot of great feedback as around the actual activities that they are doing. Again, and as you heard from the Thorpe presentation too, it's all about like creating those hands-on experiences, so that it sticks with them. When these kids got up here, right, that all they were thinking about was the experiments, because that's the exciting stuff. That's what really stuck with them, and that's exactly what the Girls Circle program is. It's all the good stuff with a chance for girls to have those conversations too. So we also, upcoming Perfect Paws Pet Ministry. This is something we started last year. We have therapy dogs from the Perfect Paws Pet Ministry. They're wonderful if you haven't interacted with them. They have a dog for everybody. And they're going to be coming in here to the high school during the midterms. Date not set yet, right? But somewhere in there, we're working on setting a date. So stay tuned for that. Also, this year, we're starting something new called the Family Workshop Series. If you've been around Danvers for a while, you've likely heard of our Strengthening Families program. It's a practical parenting curriculum targeted to parents of elementary students in partnership with the library this year, we're really happy to have that partnership. So yeah, Alex Lent over there, the director of the library, has been super, super helpful. We have a great committee of people helping to organize that. So we're going to be offering those practical parenting events. They'll be once every 2 weeks, starting towards we're looking at January 22nd as our first event. And it'll be about every 2 weeks from there. Each week will cover a different topic related to parenting concerns. In the past, the Strengthening Families curriculum asked that everybody show up to every single week for a level of continuity. But especially with scheduling, especially with timing, especially with this bleeding into April, we found that, and the feedback we received was that is really difficult for people. So instead, what we've done is we're revamping the curriculum. We're working, Cheryl James is helping us to do some of the revamping of the curriculum to make them all standalone sessions so that you don't need to be at all six to really get a lot of value out of what you're doing. And then last piece about that is that if people know Sally Palmer, she is an educator from Revive Mindfulness. She has offered to run lessons specifically for the youth. So if you're a parent, you bring your kids. You do get childcare, but it's not just childcare where you're playing a board game. They are going to be working on mindfulness exercises, working on like healthy coping strategies, and all while doing some fun activities. And then last thing to mention, people always ask, yes, we do have Light the Night Purple coming back. We're super excited to do that. That's our yearly opiate awareness community walk. Happens in May every single year. We don't have a date set, but I encourage everybody here, if you would like to get involved with that, please, let me or let anyone on the coalition know, and we'd be happy to get you plugged in. It's a great opportunity. It's a great chance for businesses, for religious organizations, for people here at the school, and for youth, and for really everybody to get together and work for a great cause. So,
Thank you, Lyle.
thank you all very much.
So you really haven't been doing much.
Yeah, it's been a slow start.
Any comments or questions, Jeff?
Well, as the liaison to the group, it's very impressive to see the work that happens every day. And I mean, I will just reiterate, to have this coalition where every aspect of the town comes together to support youth is just, you cannot underestimate how important it is. And the other thing I will say is the perspective of everyone who's contributed to this. So this isn't just, a couple people sitting in a room developing these great ideas and then trying to implement it. All of these ideas come from everyone in town who contributes not only their time, but also their expertise and their perspectives. So thank you very much. It's definitely great work.
Yeah, ditto what Jeff said, and I think changing the strategy on strengthening family makes a lot of sense. I know enrollment has kind of been dwindling over the years because it is a huge commitment. So I think it's a great idea to try and break it out into standalone nights, and hopefully people will attend.
Eric?
So Lyle, I see sort of what the overall picture here is, that the scope of what Danvers Cares is doing is broadening. It seems as though you're aiming at, I don't want to say teaching soft skills, but kind of teaching soft skills in the sense of problem solving, self-confidence, ethics, teamwork, relating to differently abled people, relating to people with different viewpoints, all of those things which are great. But I wonder, and this may be, it's not just a Danvers Cares role, but for years we have done the student survey and looked at particular behaviors of students and really tried to hone in on ways to go after those particular behaviors. And that doesn't seem to be present in what's happening now. Now, it probably is. I know there's no way that you could possibly tell us everything that's going on. But I'm curious as to what, and then again, this is where Lisa may jump in too, the overall district approach to some of those real hard problems, the opioid epidemic, smoking, drinking, all of those things that Danvers Cares was intimately involved in, and again, presumably still is, but I'd like a little more information about what Danvers Cares' role is and what the district is doing generally around that now. Because this feels different than Danvers Cares used to,
Right.
which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I'd like to know how our approach to those other problems is.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, as we've been talking about for years with Danvers Cares, right? Prevention takes a lot of different forms. And that super direct prevention oftentimes isn't actually the best strategy. It's what we're comfortable with, and it's what seems to make sense a lot of times. But a lot of times, taking that upstream approach and cutting it off at the pass is actually the better approach. So if you're talking about, like soft skills, if you're talking about responsible decision-making, confidence building, all those skills, if you build them up from that young age, and like these kids up here doing the public speaking, as they build self-confidence, they're not going to need to resort to drugs and alcohol or as a coping mechanism down the road. We're building strong adults so that when they're faced with those choices, they make the right choices, or even if they don't make the right choices, that they come back around, they have the skills to turn things around. So that's to answer that first piece of it. I covered a few select aspects tonight, especially, I wanted to touch on the social emotional learning aspect, as that is so integral to our strategic plan, as it runs concurrently with the school district strategic plan. I'd be happy to talk to you more specifically about some of the things that we're doing. But I can tell you that we do work on things like, vaping, of course, is of a lot of interest to our youth. Marijuana, alcohol, we always do something around prom season. That work is still happening, but I just say that we are focusing, our central focus is now on that upstream prevention because the outcomes are really strong that way.
Sure. No, I mean, conceptually it makes sense as long as we find ways to measure the results, and maybe that's by continuing to do the surveys.
Yes,
Exactly,
right.
yes.
Which, tomorrow we had the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Danvers High just did their Youth Risk Behavior Survey in the spring as well. So that's something that we can continue doing, of course, and always we should be measuring against.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mary Beth?
Thank you, Lyle. Great work to all of Danvers Cares and everyone that's been working on this. I really enjoyed. I saw you present in front of the selectmen last month, I believe, and the work you're doing with the rec department and all these organizations in town with the summer jobs. Again, someone here said it, just the relationship building in the community Danvers Cares is doing, I think, is great. I attended Parent University myself. Thank you very much for putting that together. And again, I think in Danvers, we're very fortunate to have an organization as Danvers Cares for the community, for parents, for the students. So I do highly encourage everyone to check out, the website and any of the events that Danvers Cares hosts throughout the year. They're all typically free programming. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I think I'm kind of with Eric. I think first of all, Danvers Cares is great. We love Danvers Cares. We've always loved Danvers Cares. But I kind of sort of get the what you're saying about taking little kids and building up the ability to make smart choices. But on the other hand, when they're in high school, they're still kids and they don't always make smart choices. So
Right.
you need this. You need the subtle soft skills, and you need the hard hammer skills too. I mean, you got to have both of them. And, I mean, the drug situation is certainly not going away. I mean, I still look at the Salem News and I see these, young kids dying, way too frequently. So I don't want to lose that focus that we've had over the past 12 years or whatever it's been since I've been here. And I don't have a problem with expanding it. At the same time, I also worry about trying to do too much. So I think we got to be very careful there. So it's all good. Everything that you're doing is good. I just need to feel as though that, we still have a focus on the choices that the kids can make when they get up to the teen years, and make sure that they understand what choices they need to make, not just by inferring it, but by making sure they understand it.
Mm-hmm.
That
might be a good time to touch on health, because they are getting that information. I mean, a lot of times it's not necessarily about the information that's being provided, because like you said, just with brain development for a teenager, they don't have fully developed brains. They're not able to make logical decisions. So giving them all the information, they will still sometimes make the wrong choice.
You're never going to get everybody, but the point is you want to reduce it to the extent possible.
If you're helping to build up everybody, then you have a better chance at better outcomes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that you can't let go of all things that we have been doing also. I think that's a good addition, but I think you need to look at it, overall, that you got to use both types of instruction, teaching, learning.
Thank you.
So.
And I think what we can also do is that in past years, we may have had this meeting as part of looking at that data, but we chose to do the middle school for the fall this year. So maybe in the winter time, we could have Lyle come back and talk about the data. So that way we can talk about that specific information there, and then maybe relate to what would be more familiar about what are those programs that we still have in place, and that we will, every time we have the children, our students take the youth risk behavior survey, that we come back to school committee and share that data. So that way we're seeing that we are continuing to make progress.
And let me just say, I'm very positive about all this, so don't take it the wrong way. And I love your enthusiasm. I mean, it's it's you make me want to, work for you. So, but great. No, but those are just my thoughts on this. So
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Same here. No criticism of what you're doing at all. It's a big job, and I love the stuff I see. I just sort of with Arthur, just want to make sure we maintain a wide focus.
I'd love to actually, if we can definitely speak about the ways that we can do that too. I'd appreciate that very much.
Good. That's great. Thanks, Lyle.
Thanks.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so next we have our curriculum update, and this is the month that we usually try to do a curriculum update around curriculum instruction and assessment based after our annual looking at student assessment data. We did that at our last meeting with the state data. So this is really an opportunity, and this is a first for us, that we have each level, elementary, middle school, and high school, all part of it. So it is a little bit longer of a presentation. Mary's going to organize that piece of it, but to really give you those examples of what is happening in our schools, with our students, the professional learning communities, with our teachers at each of the levels, and with our administrators, our principals, and curriculum directors working with our teachers. So right over to Mary.
Great. So this presentation today is on the formative assessment for results, or the FAR cycle. You hear that like you've been hearing it for months at a time, and then we talk about what we're giving you updates on the professional learning that we're doing on the FAR cycle. But today's presentation really this is what it looks like, so that you can really get a feel for it, because right now it's a very conceptual thing for you, and I think that tonight's presentation is going to really bring it to life for you. So I really thank all the teachers that came today to present to you, and I hope that they give you a really good picture of the work we're doing. So in the bigger picture, that the FAR cycle is out of our work, the district's work, coaching high-impact teacher teams. And we're really focused on our belief of teacher efficacy, that teachers working together really can make a difference in student outcomes and increased student achievement. So it's really the backbone of the work that we're doing, and this cycle is just a process that we follow to get that work done. This is the process. You're going to hear time and time again at each of the 3 presentations the steps that they go through to do it, and they're going to show you a picture of kind of what it looks like each step that they go through. So they start by clarifying their learning goal for the lessons that they're doing and creating criteria for success. Then the second step they go through, they develop a formative assessment and implement it in the classroom. Then they get together and analyze it, and then they decide together on what kind of action they're going to take. They call it firm action, and it's the different pieces of action that they can take. So today's presentation is really what it looks like, as I said, and then it's really kind of giving you a window into our use of local data. So this is some of the base level data that we get every day in the classroom from students, and this is kind of how it all gets done. So we're going to start at the elementary level, and I'm going to call up the Highlands School to come and start. Now, at the elementary, we had to put in some structures at each level. There are professional learning structures that we use, and we use early release days. At the elementary level, we use every other early release day because we alternate school-based days versus district days. So, 1 month they'll meet as a school and do the SPAR cycle work. Another month, they're going to get together as a district and work with Julie and work as grade level teams across the district. So all the first grade teachers work together, all the second grade teachers. But when it's school-based, we use the time for FAR cycle. They have professional learning community time, 1 hour a month that they use. It's on a Wednesday afternoon. They also have a faculty meeting once a month that they use an hour. And we've built in the new elementary schedule, 30-minute FAR cycle block. So each grade level has about 30 minutes of time that they get every 3 weeks to do this FAR cycle work. So they're kind of, we're piecing together the professional learning so that they can get through these cycles. So I'm going to turn it over. We have Maggie Chase, Eric Dugan, and Kelly Barry presenting to you, 3rd grade.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. So the first meeting in the FAR cycle is the step 1 piece, which we created 2 to 3 formative assessments. And we based it on the summative assessment, which our math coach, Allison Day, shared with us. And the takeaway from this was to have those formative assessments ready to go so that we can give those. So let me just show you what we mean. The summative assessment that Allison assigned to us for the unit number 1, this is what it looks like over here on the right-hand side, where you have the problem. And the problem says that how many legs are on 3 insects, and the insects have the 6 legs. So we were expecting that 75% of our students would be able to do this by the end of our Unit 1. The criteria for success was also included with this assessment, and that is in the back of our teacher's manual for Unit 1. So our criteria for success is going to be assessed, and we're going to focus on how the students will meet this benchmark. And the way that we will assess the students is, are they meeting benchmark? Are they partially meeting the benchmark or not meeting the benchmark at all? And we had different components. Interpret the story problem as being about 3 groups of 6 legs and then 6 groups of 6 legs. Then the next part was accurately multiplying 3 by 6 and 6 by 6, and the strategy that they're using. Are they skip counting? Are they using a known fact? Are they using repeated addition? And then do they write the correct multiplication equations? So this was one part, and what we did as a team is then we wrote the criteria for success, and we based it off of this so that it would be in kid-friendly language. And we have a recipe for success for each of those assessments for the boys and girls. And then another part of that was to interpret the story problem as how many groups of 4 are there in 36. So that part was the division section, which is problem number 2. And did they determine the number of bags of muffins by either skip counting, again, or using a known fact? And then were the students able to write a division equation? So again, the students have the criteria for the success, but we created a recipe for success that was in kid-friendly language for their formative assessments. So based off the summative assessments, we have created 3 formative assessments to give prior to that summative assessment. They're spaced out over the length of time. So the summative assessment is right on the left-hand side, and then we have a formative assessment on the right-hand side. And again, the recipe for success is there based off the criteria for success in the kid-friendly language.
So as you can see, the next slide is our second formative assessment. Again, as Mrs. Chase pointed out, it has the recipe for success in kid-friendly language. So kids can go through that, check off, make sure they're doing all the things they need to do. And that one, again, just kind of follows the multiplication. And then, again, our formative assessment number 3, again, kind of sets up for the summative. As you can see, summative's on the left, formative on the right. And again, you see that recipe for success, so that's something they'll see every single time. They're very used to that. And then problem 1 says there's 24 students in Mr. Cahill's class. Seating chart shows equal rows of 8 desks. How many rows of desks did he make? So then we lead into division with that final formative assessment. And then next, after that, after our formative assessments in between meetings 1 and 2, step 2 is on your own. So we would correct our assessments on our own, give it. Obviously, we'd have to give it first and then correct it, and then make predictions about what we thought we'd see. And then when we come back together as a team, we'll talk about what those predictions might be, and then take a look at the results of that. And then, as you can see on the next slide, is just some student work that kids came up with. So on the far left is kids meeting the benchmark. So you can see that student has a clear equation. 4 times 6 is 24. So they've met that first recipe, part of the recipe for success, and has a clear strategy, which is skip counting, which is something we'd be looking for at that level. How many legs do 8 cats have? And then they continue it again on that next part, again with skip counting, and actually drew a picture there too. So that's meeting the benchmark. The next one would be partially meeting the benchmark. You can see that for number 1, it's meeting, but then 2 and 3 is partially, and 3 is actually not meeting the benchmark because their equation is 26 rather than 24. And then same on the bottom, they got inaccurate answers. So, and then the third one would be an example of a child not meeting the benchmark. And then on the next slide, we have what we do with all that data. So once we collect it all, we've got a collection sheet, and that's an example of where we put it all. And again, we have a percentage of the kids that are meeting benchmark, and it's all broken down by criteria. So criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to criteria 6. Percentage of meeting, percentage of partially meeting, and percentage of children that did not meet the benchmark for the unit. Again, our goal would be 75.
Mary, do you mind just going back to that last slide? So the picture on the left is really just a zoomed-in picture of the criteria analysis table, where we are putting the 6 criteria up at the top, which the arrow is pointing to. So you'll see the 6 criteria as more enlarged, just so you have more of a better visual of that. And then at the very bottom is where we calculate our results for each of those criteria. So again, that's zoomed in, so you have a better picture. And in this case, for that formative assessment, we reached our goal of 75% of students meeting the benchmark on all 6 criteria. So you can go to the next one. So after meeting 1, we have that in-between stage that Eric just talked about. Then we meet together as a team for meeting 2. And what meeting 2 encompasses is step 3 and step 4 of the FAR cycle. So step 3 is where we come together and really analyze the data. And we're working together to fill out a note catcher using the data-driven dialogue protocol. Other teachers might be using chart paper or sticky notes to engage in that protocol. We are using an electronic version just because we just prefer to have it all in one place for us to stay organized. Then step 4, based on our data-driven dialogue, we are planning our firm action. So what are we going to do to address the percentage of students who are not meeting the benchmark in those specific criteria? So on the left-hand side, you'll see an example of our data-driven dialogue note catcher. So we fill out the prediction section before we meet because we need to predict before we
actually find the results. So that's why that's at the top there first. Then together as a team, we are just going over observations. What are the facts? What do we see? We're not using any because statements. So what we noticed, 75% of third graders scored meeting the benchmark on all criteria. Then we noticed out of the next larger percentages, 14% and 19% of students did not meet the benchmark for writing an accurate equation. So already our wheels are turning. That's where we need to address or plan for firm action in that area. So some of our inferences or questions that we had in regards to that formative assessment, did the students understand that they had to write an equation? Did they understand that that was part of their recipe for success? Did they actually go back and double check the recipe for success? And did they understand the equation in part B? So some multiplied 8 times 6 instead of 8 times 4. So having those two problems related to each other actually confused some of the third graders who took that formative assessment. So our plan, you'll see on the right. So there are a number of different directions you can take with firm action. The one on the top, just to move on. So there's no action required. So based on our results of 75% or more, we chose one to move on. But for the other students, we chose to reteach. So what we planned to do was to do activators with story problems that practice writing an equation similar to those that were on the formative assessment. And then in between that second and third meeting, we are going to take that firm action. We're actually going to give a reassessment. That reassessment could look, it could take many different forms. So it could be the next formative assessment. It could be an exit ticket. It could be a page in their math workbook that we're looking at to see how they did, if they applied that reteaching. We chose to do an exit ticket. Or, I'm sorry, an activator. And then meeting 3 will just be to reflect on what we did. What was our firm action that we took? We'd bring some student work with us. We'd also engage in the sharing experiments protocol. And on the next slide, we have the sharing experiments protocol where we are just each taking a minute or two to share what did we try, what did it look like, how do we think it went, and we're bringing examples of student work. So these are the two activators that we used with our students to assess that. And you'll notice below that they wrote the equation for both of those activators. That particular student did. So we have the luxury in elementary school to engage in what's called math workshops. So we do a lot of small group math work regardless. So this process really lends itself to the format of our math workshop. So it's easy for us to implement during that time. That's it.
Do you want to ask questions at each
I
level
do.
before we go on to the next
So
level?
we have till
So
the
we'll
end.
have
I'll
Dave
All right, Dave, then go ahead.
I just have one question, and I think you just answered it, actually. You have 3 groups, obviously, here, partially met, and did not meet the objective. So are you able to then break those students out by teacher? So you kind of, look at it like Excel, average and needs help? Or if you can't do that because of logistics or whatever, are you able to break them down? And I think you just said you do this by small groups, so the kids that get it can get challenged to do more. Those in the middle can get reinforced, and those that need help can get the additional help. Okay.
So again, that lends itself to this work. However, some of the kids in the high math group may not have been meeting the benchmark for whatever reason. So going through that dialogue, we can kind of make groups within our own classrooms and say, okay, for today I'm not meeting with the triangle group. Instead, I need to meet with Joey, Mia, and whoever, and pull them for that specific work.
Yep.
Being that it's the first year of the FAR cycle in our grade level team. We are going to be looking to split up the groups by teachers. We just haven't extended it that far.
Sure.
We're still kind of navigating the waters the beginning of the year, but I think that's our plan as a team to, once we've done that data-driven dialogue for the whole grade 3, then who are the kids meeting, who are partially, who are not, and then assign a teacher for each of those groups for the extension,
Right.
or the reteaching, or whatever it may be that we need to do.
Great. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Eric.
this strikes me as just an awful lot of work on one particular sort of discrete issue. And at the elementary level, you're dealing with English and social studies, all this. How do you, I mean, do you devote this kind of time to these assessments in every subject matter area? And how do you fit that all in 3 hours a month?
Well, I mean, we are focusing on math this year. We do formative assessments in all subjects.
Mhm.
I think in this case, it looks a lot more. It looks like a lot more than it
Okay.
actually is. It's stuff that
Okay.
you normally do anyway, but I think we're just highlighting it and making it more visible. So our grading of these assessments might be like a quick sort. We have the pile, and it's no, yes, kind of, no, yes, kind of, real quick, and then coming together and sharing those results
Okay.
fairly quickly.
Okay.
So even though it seems like there's a lot of steps,
Sure.
they're quick steps for the most part. Once the formative assessments are created, then, I mean, it's really smooth sailing, I guess, kind of. And lucky for us, Allison Day and Julie said, okay, by the end of Unit 1 for math for 3rd grade, this is what they need to do. So now we're doing like a backwards approach to those formative assessments where we're saying, okay, if they need to do this, this is a good checkpoint for us to see, are they getting these skills in order for them to be successful for the summative? And then just piecing it together that way.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Anybody else? Mary Beth, you good? Jeff?
Yeah, I'll hold my stand.
Okay, guys, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we're moving on to the middle school, and we have our 6th grade math team coming up to present to you. At the middle school, the structures that we have in place to support this work is, again, the early release day. There are 2 hours on our early release day. In the fall here, we've been really front-loading the early releases so that the work is all focused on the FAR cycle. They have 1 hour department meeting time that each month that they work on, and they also have a common planning time meeting, and then they take 1 out of their the common planning time meetings in the 7-day cycle to work on the FAR cycle. So we have the 6th grade math team. We have Renata Yulich, we have Michelle Domeno, we have Rebecca Waite, and we have Lori Bernier, but she has a new married name I can't say. Thank you. Sorry about that.
I get it wrong almost every day.
Great.
Hi. So I think you're going to see a common theme here. Our presentation really parallels the work that they're doing at the elementary school as well. So we're going to give you kind of a quick, we turned this around in about a week. We, on a Wednesday, gave a formative assessment to all our blocks as an entry ticket, and we called them Show What You Know, and it was a specific problem based on a specific standard, and we used it to form groupings. So the problem was this here: the cafeteria serves pizza every 9 days and tater tots every 6 days. On which day will students be able to get both pizza and tater tots for lunch? Show or explain how you got your answer. So this is a problem in which students would use the least common multiple, kind of find the least common multiple to find the answer to the problem. So we gave the assessment, and then we came to our Thursday meeting, so the next day, our PLC meeting, and we quick sorted our papers into groups. We had, actually in the end, we had 4 groups. Some students got the problem right up front. Then we had 2 groups that were close. One found a common multiple, but not the least common multiple. And another group multiplied the 2 numbers, which also gave them a common multiple, but not the least. And then finally, the kids that really didn't have a strategy at all to get started.
Yep. So on the next slide, yep, you see the statistics. So that's just a sample class. It was just, we did a quick sort together. There's our sample of 4 groups. We had a not yet. We called them the purple group. Then, some students that chose 54 or 36. The ones that were multiples, just not the smallest common multiple. That was the, can't see, green group probably. Then we had blue group, which was so close. So maybe they just had a calculation error, but they had the right strategies going. And then the people that were in the yes group, they got it. They needed to move on to an extension. So on the next slide. So then we discussed. So we did that actually together because it was our first time doing it. We wanted to make sure we were doing the right thing. Then we discussed and figured out, like, how are we going to figure out and target their instruction? How are they going to get it? We made all students make corrections to their errors by using a colored pencil. That's just a strategy. We want them to look at their error and fix it. Then we met, some students we wanted them all to be in small groups to reconsider the problem. Some students couldn't understand that problem, so we gave them a familiar problem to work with. We've been working with Ferris wheels, so going back to a Ferris wheel problem helped them understand it. We explained to students on our group work days that everyone just gets what they need. So everyone's in different color groups. These change all the time based on different standards. The purple group was the reteach group. They had no idea, the green group, we had to redefine what that word was, least common multiple, correct the problem. So all 4 groups basically had different tasks to do. The blue group, similar problem, and then the orange group needed an extension problem to be challenged.
After the reteaching came assessing again to make sure that our firm action, got the students where they needed to be in terms of meeting that standard. So when they were given their retake, the students who were in the 2 so close categories and the students that didn't quite get it yet and received more explicit reteaching, they got a problem of the same caliber, and we call that our meets expectation retake. And then students who received, the yes group, they got an extension problem. So we were really pushing them one step further. Could they apply what they know about least common multiple to a more challenging problem, something that made them think maybe a little bit more critically? These are some examples. So you'll see we do have the criteria for success, which we were so excited to see 3rd grade using that too, and we love their language of recipe for success. So we have the criteria for success up in the top corner of our second pass, so their retake, and up at the top was their first pass. And you can see there, that student, they were trying to draw a picture to help them, which is not the most efficient way. So we were able to really target that when we were in their reteaching groups. Down at the bottom, just some statistics for you. After the first pass, we only had about 55 of our students meeting those expectations, but after retaking and reteaching, we had 70% of students who had met expectations. So of course we didn't stop there. Oh, and this is a 5-day turnaround. So sorry. This is me too. So you can see here, before we even started the whole thing, we had set ourselves like this is where we'd like to be by this date, so that we had a start and end point to keep it moving.
But with that 5-day cycle, we're not done with this. Some of the things that we took into consideration after just working as a PLC group, we had talked about coming to our PLC groups with our stuff already sorted, just because we know everybody's time is short and we have only a certain amount of time to work. So that was one thing we decided that we needed to come to our PLC groups with stuff sorted, sort of come with some new strategies that we want to use to reteach some kids. One teacher might have a good strategy that another teacher can use, so we can share some of those ideas and try some new sort of FAR cycle activities. And then, this is inside. So where we are now and where we're going, because again, there still is a certain percentage of kids who have not met that expectation yet. So the team has decided that we are going to put some more tasks, some more informational videos on their Google Classroom, that it's also individualized so that some kids get this least common multiple, what's the word I'm looking for? Skill that they just haven't met that expectation with, while some other kids might have a GCF problem and all these things that we've assessed. So it'll be individualized for them, and it can be at their student pace, so when they can get to it, when when they can stay after and work on that as well. We did talk about doing some cross-team intervention as well, just like you guys sort of brought up earlier. Becca taking a group that is not yet, maybe Renata take an exceeding group. So we did talk about doing that as well. And then just various ways of grouping students. We recently just grouped students based off of, sort of what skill or strategy they like to particularly use for a problem. So it was something that worked really well. So again, just regrouping them so that they're able to work with different kids and get what they need for these for this FAR cycle.
We're finding too, sorry, I know it's not off task, but off the PowerPoint, but we're finding too that this is aligning really great with our growth mindset in our classrooms too. Students are constantly going back and revising and, seeing firsthand that it may not be perfect the first time, and that's fine. It just takes a little bit more work, and we all will get there, just not there yet. So we've really enjoyed that part of the FAR cycle specifically.
And thank you. That's the middle school.
Does anybody have middle school questions? Is everybody good?
Good.
Okay, you guys, thank you.
Thank you so much.
As an aside, I just happened to walk into their FAR cycle meeting one day when they were doing this cycle, and they were all four at the board, like looking over strategies, working, using their the expo pens and writing and really collaborating so strongly on like what was the best method, what were some more efficient methods they could use with kids. So they really were, they not only look at the student work, they also talk about teaching strategies and what is the best pedagogy to use to get at the mathematical concepts that they need for the kids.
That's great.
Thank you.
All right, we're into high school. So we had third grade math, we went to sixth grade math, now we're vaulting you to calculus. So we're going to have Todd Topher come up. The high school has similar structures as the middle school, the early release days, faculty meetings, and common planning time meetings. So turn it over.
All right, so we're going to be talking about calculus. We also have algebra 2 and geometry, but we sort of teach the same calculus. So we're going with that. As a heads up, our data is not complete because we haven't finished everything yet, but we'll get there. So the stuff we were just talking about in calculus are trig derivatives and chain rule, which may mean nothing to anyone, but it does with us. And so the first thing we had to do was find out what the standards were that we needed to assess. So AP puts out this thing they call the Acorn book that has a bunch of standards in it, and we had to pick the ones that really honed in on what we wanted the kids to focus on and think about. So those are the two we picked, calculate derivatives, and then chain rule provides a way to calculate derivatives of composite functions. Again, you may not know what those words mean, but that's okay. And then Topher and I said, okay, well, let's take those standards and let's put those into words that make a little bit more sense to maybe our students, but it's not student-friendly yet, but a little bit more sense. So you'll be able to find the derivatives of functions using chain rule and trigonometry that's the objective we would show the kids each day.
One of the challenges in math is coming up with criteria for success that students can use without kind of giving away the game, so to speak. It's a lot easier. I taught English at some point, and I found that a lot easier when I was telling students what they need to include in a paragraph. I didn't have to give them the steps to solve a problem. So one of the things we've been working on really over the last year or so is trying to find a way to refine the goals of an objective into ways that a student knows on their own whether or not they have kind of headed down the right path, whether or not they have the skills that they need to be successful. And for this particular set of goals, we were able to talk about identifying different functions within a problem, talking about identifying what steps they need to do, what skills they need to apply, and then using some appropriate notation and using some of the calc things that we've been doing in order to come to an answer. As far as the data collection, so we give an assessment on a topic 4 times. The first 2 times that they see it, it's purely formative. We provide them with feedback, and as we are looking at that, we score them from 0 to 3 based on we don't see any understanding, some kind of a limited understanding, approaching understanding what's going on, and then mastery understanding. And then the third and fourth time are for a summative grade that are based on more traditional scoring methods. In looking at the data, the way that we collect it is we count the number of students that fit into each category each time. We compile this in a Google Sheets. I was using Excel spreadsheet the other day and I got yelled at by Todd for that because we are now Google, whether or not Mask knows it yet. But in terms of that, it makes it a lot easier for us to count things and take what we're already doing and just find a way to compile it in a meaningful way. The goal is generally to see the earlier categories go down and the later categories go up as we move from right to left over time. And the data that you see only has the first 3 assessments because we haven't yet given the 4th. And also, Todd mentioned that we sort of teach the same calculus. Todd's section is an AB calculus, which is all AP. My section is a honors/AP split. So in terms of content, we're about a week and a half to 2 weeks behind, which is why the data is a little wonky here.
And this data is only my students.
Yes.
And we don't have the last one yet. Some of them took it on Friday, but I had like a third of them were absent for one reason or another. So we didn't include that data because it wouldn't have made sense. And then in terms of what we did to support the kids in between these assessments, because as Toph said, these assessments are over the course of like a month or so, because we give their assessments when we have them last block, and with our road hitting schedule, that really spaces things out for them. So they really have over a month to kind of hopefully get to mastery understanding of the material. And so in between, to prepare the kids for each assessment, we give them a review, and then we both create a video of us doing the review, giving them pointers along the way, showing how to do the questions correctly, maybe bringing in things that they've messed up in the past to try to highlight, okay, make sure you're aware of this and keep that in mind, and that sort of thing. So that's for each assessment that we give them, and we've been doing that for like 6 years now. Yeah. So that's nothing new for us. This is just a way of tracking that data. And if there are certain things that I've noticed the students have issues with on the quizzes, we don't go over the quizzes in class, but what I'll do is I'll create a video of me highlighting the questions that they really struggled with and putting that up on Classroom so the kids can access that. Because what we noticed is if you go over a quiz in class, and many of us maybe did this when we were in high school, is when you go over a quiz in class, a lot of the class is just going to tune out and not pay attention. But we figured if we create videos specific to the questions that the kids are struggling on, the kids can access those videos on their own time to make sure that they can get the help that they need, in whatever that it is. So they don't have to listen to us talk about 10 different problems. They can focus on the one that they really need.
And hopefully learn a little bit along the way in terms of being a more self-sufficient human being, how to be a student.
Right. I mean, that's my goal for all my kids is to make them better students. And so we try to give them ways to access that and to help themselves be successful without kind of beating them over the head with this is exactly what you need to do. The support's there for them, and obviously we're there for them after school and before school if they need it. But we want them to reach out and get that help when they need it.
Thank you.
You guys have any trigonometric questions?
Once my brain heard the word calculus, it just shut down.
Mine too.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, no, I mean, I want to comment because I actually Googled the chain rule while you were talking about it because I was curious about, and they went through atmospheric pressure and the skydiver and what happens, and so what is the difference between blah, 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 blah. So it's interesting. Yeah. And so my point I will make is this. So, thank you for taking the time to actually, apply this formula, all of these the new teaching. But it doesn't sound like it's new to you. It sounds like, if anybody would have picked this up 5-10 years ago, you guys in calculus would have. So is this, formative and summative assessments, is this new to you at all? Are you getting anything new from it?
So,
or
the biggest things we've done, let's go back. So I used to do, when I first started teaching, now I sound like an old person. I've been teaching 14 years. But when I first started teaching, I did the traditional like quizzes and tests where you give like 2 quizzes and then you give kids a test. But what started to drive me crazy is kids would do, they get 70s on the quizzes and then they get a 90 on the test. And I'm like, but we're punishing the kids then because they didn't show their understanding on the quiz, but when I asked them, did they understand at the end, they got it. So then I started changing quiz scores to reflect test scores if they've shown improvement. And then that transitioned into more of what we're doing here, where I kept assessing kids over time, and I would change their scores over time if they showed me improvement. It was the same content. I actually made the problems harder over time to really make them earn those points that they could earn. So instead of having the kids do any retakes or anything like that, we don't do that. Well, we don't do that. The rest of our colleagues still assess that way. But we don't do that, and I think it helps the kids lower their stress. And then this year, the big change we've made is I was grading all 4 sections, and we were grading all 4 sections. And what we started doing, because each quiz has 4 sections where you see the content over time, we stopped grading the first 2 times you see a topic to really take the pressure off and to say this is only for learning. And I think that's taken a lot of the collective stress, except for some of my BC Calc kids who, like, their stress level is already really high. But I think collectively for most of my kids, it lowers their stress because they have 2 shots at it where there's no pressure at all. If you get it wrong, it's okay. And so I think that's been a change we have made because of the fire cycle and various other things that we've kind of implemented. In addition to that, we've actually changed how we've graded even beyond that, where we're not really telling the kids what mistakes they're making. We're highlighting where in the problem they're making a mistake. And then they have to figure out, okay, what did I do wrong? And if they can't figure that out, they got to come talk to us. So really putting some more stuff on their plate in terms of how to become a better student. So it's evolved over time. This is a way to document it, but it's, as Toph said, it's not really anything different. It's just
Great. And I think as we
way to
worked
show
with
it.
with Nancy Love, the last time that I was able to have a conversation with her, it's really about good teaching. So it's a lot of the things that we have been doing. It's really prioritizing. So that firm action. And I was hoping maybe someone could then tell us a little bit more about the firm action too, because we put that acronym up there, and we maybe have shared what the FAR cycle, the FAR stands for, but just to highlight when we say the teachers are taking firm action, that we really are spending time on the assessment piece, which maybe we haven't always done. As someone presented to us, like how do you get to all of this in a 6.5 hour day with students in 5 to 7 different subjects that they have. Right this side.
Yep. So the firm action is on the right-hand side of the screen, and they don't have it in the firm acronym order. Firm F is feedback, I is investigation, R is reteaching, reengaging, regrouping, M is move on, and then E is extension. So that these are the options that they can take to work with students. So, and a lot of them do, as you see here, they did a combination of those acronym letters. So. And I think that the FAR cycle really is, it's just a way, K to 12, to have us all on the same page using formative assessments in the same manner. So we have a common language across the levels of how we're looking at student work and analyzing student work.
But those examples that you gave were like 2 of the things that I haven't heard. I mean, we probably do it, but the concept of using technology, the video, and some of the other things that we're doing, marry that with, and David talked about before, well, what do you do for students who kind of already got it? Do you have some sort of individualization? And so in your case, you used it for students who maybe aren't getting it, but that marries 2 of those concepts together. And so, what my ears are always listening for is what can we do to make that process easier for you? Do you need, better video equipment? Do you need better training or tools to be able to do that? Because that, I think, is going to be the key. Certainly in high school. I mean, elementary is different. I don't know that you could put that in front of students, but if you have ideas as ways to do that and individualize the learning for each of these students, and I don't know, do you have data on how the results have been so far? Are these students doing better in, I don't want to say a state standardized test, but some other sort of empirical evidence that yes, when you do this individualized approach, like the videos, it is better than,
If I
grading
look
it?
at the AP numbers of my students in terms of their scores, yes, I've seen improvement over the past 6 years since I've been here.
The other piece of that is looking at small data, so to speak. I use a program called Edpuzzle to keep track of who watches which videos and how much they watch.
Perfect.
I can also see how often
Good.
they watch different segments. So someone might watch something 5 times and nothing else.
Yeah.
And I've done some correlations that I occasionally share with students when I get upset at classes not watching enough.
Yeah.
Showing that students that even access the videos generally outscore students that don't bother by sometimes a 2-to-1 margin.
Yeah, exactly. Good. And then my last question is going to be for you on English versus math.
Yes.
Math, I completely get this. It makes total sense. The videos are awesome. If you're writing a 20-page essay and it's some sort of, it's a persuasion piece that you're trying, I mean, is this applicable to that? Can you use some of this? Please.
go ahead.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
We have our whole team here.
Good.
Ellen, too, is working on
I would say definitely. I think at the high school, obviously, we have a lot of different common planning teams working at the same time. But if you look at English compared to math, compared to science, compared to social studies, obviously the disciplines are very different. But because you're focusing on specific standards, in writing, there are very specific skills that each grade level is responsible for teaching. So if they parse everything apart and they're focusing simply on an opening or a thesis statement, and that's what they're working on for that section of time, that they can really kind of drill down and focus on those things. And then when you get to the end, you look at the whole piece, that whole 8 pages, 20 pages, however many pages, all that built up, all those little skills built up to that final product. So that those formative pieces, those reteaching pieces kind of reinforce those skills to get to the end. So regardless of content, that those standards drive those conversations and what the teachers are selecting to really focus on.
So if there was something deficient in one of those particular pieces in English, you could do a similar video and
Sure.
say, look, you missed this, and I don't even know the proper terminology, but something in the middle that made the whole thing fall apart.
And I think, again, I'm the new, not so new person, but I think the technology available in Danvers is really robust. And I think the teachers have the ability to access a whole bunch of different things that I've never had the pleasure of interacting with. So I think they have a lot of tools in place that the teachers are really kind of taking advantage of and owning. Obviously, there's always room for exploration, but I think the learning platform, which, Mary has spearheaded, I don't know how long we've been doing it, but there's access to a whole bunch of other tools, but we make sure we vet them to make sure they're the best tools possible for our students and our teachers. So they have access, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
One of our grade level teams in middle school has taken the writer's checklist.
We want all the people at
The writer's checklist from Teachers College, which I know you've seen many times before, so we don't need to revamp those, but they've taken the Teachers College checklist, which students use to self-assess and which teachers use to give feedback, and they've actually turned them into hyperlinked docs. So within a checklist, it's now a document that has links that students can click on to then see an instructional video, or could see the teacher showing on their mentor text document where they've done the type of writing skill that students would be addressing in that part of the checklist. So they've already started to use the technology specifically around the writing. I think for our teachers who have truly adopted the Teachers College Writing Workshop with the most fidelity in its purest sense, are struggling a little bit to marry the two, just because the writing workshop model is so about the individual student's writing progress, whereas I think a lot of the Far Cycle work is sort of looking at a snapshot of where your class is as a whole and kind of parsing them into these maybe chunks of like 4 groups of kids. And so the writing workshop in its purest form doesn't perfectly fit that way. But it's still, we talked to Nancy Love actually the last time she was here a lot about that and sort of reconciling that conflict. And it's all still to the same end of really helping kids improve using the data in front of you, which is looking at kids' writing to help them become better writers. So that's sort of how we've dealt with that at the middle school.
And also K-12 in our writing workshop, in our writing team, we have a K-12 team, small group instruction is a focus of that. So we're kind of dabbling in it so that we're ready for the Far Cycle in another year. If we've gotten good at it in math, then we can start to shift at the elementary level to writing or middle school. The middle school teachers are focused on writing. And that's
When you're asking about the videos, like the elementary school kiddos could use the videos in terms of if you can get them in front of a computer, they can have their headphones on and be watching whatever video they need to watch. Because we do that during long block in some of our classes where we create various videos for the kids and they will access the ones that they need to access. So you could use that in any class. And the middle school people were talking about creating some videos or something for the kids. Like you can do that. It's not that hard. And you can do it on the Chromebook even. Like we use the iPads because the app works better on the iPads, but you can do the same thing on the Chromebook. So pretty much across the district, we could use it.
I feel like parents just need to know more of that. Like when we go and do reviews and open houses and things like that, we get really good views of the curriculum and what's being taught and how it's being taught. But I mean, that is just so important for parents to understand that, look, we do individualize as much as we can. We're getting better. And if parents could do something with that as well, I think that would be helpful too. So send it back to the parents and say, look, if they could review some of these things too, that would be great and reinforce it.
Maybe we can make them watch school committee. Yes?
We could do
Go
that.
ahead. And see,
only the sections where you're talking, Art. They're not going to want to listen to the rest
Well,
of
I
this.
just
They're
feel
gonna
like as
focus
teachers too, we're doing more work with sending notifications home. So not just calling them up when they're getting in trouble or something, but we're sending more communication about the curriculum. And we just sent out a letter home to the sixth grade families about resources to help their students and how we're targeting in their specific Google Classroom. So look there in their own section. So we are trying to inform the parents that there is that specialized instruction to help them there. Yeah.
Great.
Thank
All right. Wow. I love it when everybody's so excited.
It happens at the end of the meeting. When you need to It's a 5-hour energy for the end.
I was going to say, the enthusiasm here is just amazing.
Have any other questions before we?
I just wanted to comment. I think the video thing is remarkable. I honestly will say I didn't realize that was happening and assumed my daughter was watching Netflix, but she was actually watching her. I'm sure trust me, she watches plenty of Netflix, but she was actually watching a teacher give instruction on something. And I love what you said about the tool you have to be able to see who's actually viewing them, because so much of it is effort. I think math was not my strong suit, still is not my strong suit, and but putting that effort into it, I think, says a lot about a student, whether they're mastering the concept or not. So I think that's great to know who's taking advantage of it, and to be able to show them that their grades are improving. The ones that are watching them is fantastic. So thank you very much.
I have 3 comments that I can make in less than a minute.
Good. Excellent.
1, this has been one of the most informative presentations I think we've had. This is, I really feel like I understand what you all are doing in the classroom and outside the classroom to make it happen. This was really good. Secondly, as I said before, your enthusiasm that you guys are into this and you care about what you're doing and you care about the outcomes and you love talking about it. 3, parents ought to watch this presentation. Anybody who thinks that teaching in the 21st century is easy ought to watch this and just see what you guys are putting into each student every day. That's it, Mr. Chairman. This is great. Thank you.
And by the way, I agree with all that.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say anything else. Anybody
you
else, Mary Beth?
I'm all set. Thank
Good?
you for the
Jeff, you've had
presentation.
enough?
I'm had enough. I'm
All right.
good. That was awesome.
Great job, everybody. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Um,
We really
and
appreciate
now-
all of you here.
And now Keith's going to do Smith School, and then we're going to go really fast the rest of the way. You guys don't have to stay.
No.
Where are you all going?
Thank you.
I was like, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Ever had it where we've never had a person in the audience?
I know, I've never seen this before.
Talk about them all now.
First.
Mary, could you go sit out
Yeah, I
there?
will.
All right, Keith, Smith School.
So the Smith School continues to move forward. We're excited that we had a community forum during the month of October. We have another community forum coming up on December 13th at 7 o'clock at the Holton Richmond Middle School in the MPR. So pleased to invite the community to come out and partake in that. Whether Smith is your district or not, it's an exciting project for the town and is really going to benefit all of our students, especially as we look to roll out a lot of these concepts throughout our other elementary schools and throughout the district to continue to move education forward. At the end of October, we were able to review our construction manager at risk applications, and we had 8 firms who applied. We then shortlisted that to 4 firms who had a site visit during November, and they'll actually be conducting interviews with the actual project teams who will be working on the Smith School project from the construction side next week. So when we come back in December, hopefully we can report to you what firm we'll be working with. As well, we went to MSBA in the beginning of November to go over the next phase of our design submission to get ready to move into a project funding and scope agreement with them throughout the next several months.
All right. Any questions? Pretty good?
Just one comment, just keep doing all you can to inform the neighbors surrounding it. It's difficult, having gone through the high school project and the middle school project. In some ways, people can never get enough information, or you've put it out there and they simply haven't accessed it. But recognizing that frustration on everybody's part, continue to do the best you can, I guess, to keep people informed, because it really is a challenge, I know.
And please come to the community forums if people want to reach out to us individually as well. We're happy to have conversations with anyone whenever it's convenient to really inform them about the project and the process that it goes through.
I've actually attended the last 2 meetings for the community, and I will say that I highly recommend anyone definitely go to these meetings. They are very informative. The town actually, on the town website, there is a Smith School section that talks all about the previous meetings. It has the designs, it has the updates to the meetings that have been going on. So there are great resources for that, for people to get the information. And I do know it's been on social media. The school district's been putting it out there, but I do encourage folks from the community to attend the December 13th meeting, because we're getting closer to really seeing come to really happening. So that's it.
Okay. All right.
you.
Unfinished business.
For policy, the superintendent recommends the approval of review of sections B and C as per the MASC request for a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second, and we talked about this last time. Does anybody have any further comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And then next we have Mary Beth attended the MASC delegate meeting. So a couple updates from there.
Sure. On November 7th to the 10th, the conference was held down in Hyannis. Dr. Dana and I attended the first 2 days together, and we actually presented on the first day. We presented strengthening relational trust in the SEL and the adult community of schools. We presented with John Provost, who's superintendent of the Northampton Public Schools, and Pamela Siegel, the executive director of the Courage and Renewal Center, who's come to Danvers and been working with us on leading together. So we've been focusing a lot on the students' social and emotional well-being and all. Now we're also, in addition to continuing that with the students, we're working with the staff in the district. And we had a great turnout for our session. We had over 40 people attend it. A lot of great information. It was great to present with John from Northampton to hear what they've been doing out there and how it's really been very helpful to them. Taking care of the adults helps teach the students and helps everyone involved, attain success. So it was a really good presentation. There were a lot of great sessions. I attended a DESE update session. There were a lot of great speakers. Mark Brackett, who is the executive director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, was a general session speaker. He was very good. The new commissioner of DESE was there, who spoke at dinner. So Jeffrey Riley spoke and basically talked about all the students. Like, we have to take care of all the students, and how are we going to do that? And it was a really positive speech that he gave. And I think he's bringing some great experience, having been a teacher and principal and worked his way up. I really feel excited, as did a lot of the school committee members and superintendents in the room. So that was great. And then on the resolutions that happened on Friday, all but number 4 passed. Number 4 was talking about regional transportation, and it was actually sent back to the committee for further review. There was a lot of discussion on wording and why it was just regional and not district transportation, so that one has been sent back, but the others all passed. So, and that information has been updated, I believe, on the MASC website. So if you wanted to go further and see, there are additional notes to that as well. And again, if you download the app for the MASC conference, you can, a lot of the sessions had attached their PowerPoint presentations. So if there was something of interest to you, you could certainly look those up. So that was it. And anyone that wants to go next year, I mean, I enjoy going. It's you know, for a couple days, you get a lot of information. If you haven't gone, I encourage you to maybe try to attend in the future because it really is informative. So
Thanks.
thank you for letting me go.
Thank you for going.
Thank you for going.
You take,
Yeah.
you take care of us in that regard. And also, I guess you were kept a little late too, so you had to hit the traffic on the way home?
Yeah, it took me a few hours
what
to
I
get home.
understand?
More than the norm. So, yeah, because the delegate session was on Friday at 3:15. It didn't start until 3:30.
That's not
It was,
good timing.
yeah.
Not fun.
Yeah,
No,
so
no.
that was a change from the previous years. It used to be on the first day, so maybe they'll go back
At least
to
do
that.
it in the morning, right? So anyway, but thanks, Mary Beth. Okay, new business.
New business, our work with policy. The superintendent recommends the approval of review of sections D and E as per the MASC request for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any information on this?
From a policy perspective, I'll just say, you know, for those as a refresher, D is on annual budgets and procedures. E is on safety, buildings, and school grounds. Those are the main categories for those. And for the most part, all the changes are either updated language, as we heard earlier, or clarification.
Yeah, there was nothing substantive at all, as I recall.
No,
Yeah.
not that I can see.
And we didn't meet for policy during November being a shorter month, so we will set that up right after today's meeting. We'll set up our December meeting with the policy subcommittee and we'll review everything before the
I
second
had
reading.
one question, Mr. Chairman. On section EC, which has to do with buildings and ground management, if I read this correctly, the way our current policy reads, it talks about the DPW having primary responsibility for the buildings. And because, as we know, Danvers is one of the few communities where the town actually has control of the buildings versus the school. And it's kind of the town budget and all of those things. So I'm curious as to whether this policy, which is clearly written for sort of the typical district, will work for us in a general sense where now it says the superintendent's primarily responsible.
So what we
Didn't know how
would
you
like
felt
to
about
present to the policy subcommittee would be that we take our policy that we have originally, that is a Danvers policy, and it's very specific, Mr. Crane, as you said, because of the way we work with DPW, and that will become the attachment to the overview MASC policy.
Okay.
There's like a letter that goes after it. So whatever letter it is now, then there would be an attachment with it, which would be that procedure of what we actually have in Danvers working with our DPW.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. All right, so all those in favor for a first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes. And field trips.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends the approval of the out-of-state field trip for the Danvers High School to go to Ecuador in the Galapagos Islands, and for the Danvers High School Politics and Government Club to the Junior States Fall Conference in Providence, Rhode Island.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and fundraising.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends the approval of fundraising events for the class of 2020, the Environmental Club, the DHS Girls Basketball, and the Service Learning class.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, order of business.
Thank you. Communications, we have our North Shore Education Consortium, our auditors presented at our November meeting. We have a clean audit with our Special Ed Consortium, and our next project is the annual report. So we should have that December, January for you.
Eric, I don't think there's any legislation, is there?
Just one comment, just sort of keep in mind, the governor, I think right after the election, signed Senate Bill 2631, which is an act to promote and enhance civic engagement. And this is a bill, it's come up, we've talked about it briefly, but the law will make it a requirement for Massachusetts public high schools and school districts serving 8th grade students to provide at least one student-led, nonpartisan civics project for each student. And it talks about the projects being small or individual, they can be group projects. And I don't believe they're implementing it until the school year 2020-2021. However, we're halfway through 2018-19, so it'll be here much sooner than most of us think. So I'm just encouraging you to keep us informed as to how that'll work, because I have this vision of trying to marshal and supervise 250 kids doing projects in the course of a year. I know it fits in with our project-based learning, and so it'll kind of fit with that new model. Having said that, I'm curious as to how you develop that curriculum and what we hear from the state about what the expectations will be. And there are also some communities, I think, that are looking into whether it's an unfunded mandate. So if I hear more about that, I'll share that as well.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Deep.
So Deep held our annual wine tasting in October. We raised a little over $18,000 that will go to teacher grants. We raised over about $21,000, but with expenses, there's $18,000 that can go towards teacher grants this year. So I just want to thank everyone that attended, all the businesses that sponsored, and in-kind donations. It was a great event, so thank you. And then Deep is also coordinating the Downtown Holiday Festival this year. So on December 1st, when Santa comes to light the Christmas tree, Deep has been working with Susan Fletcher from the planning department, the Downtown Improvement Committee, the Downtown Business Organization used to run it. They are no longer. So Deep was able to step forward and say that we would continue the tradition this year to bring the festival to town. So we've been doing that. And again, December 1st, 2 to 5, downtown Danvers. A lot of businesses are participating with giving special promotions, giveaways, activities. We are also going to have some of the choral groups from Danvers High and the middle school perform down there. The Girl Scouts are performing. Maple Street Church is having a living nativity. DCAT is having pictures with the elves, and Santa. You can have your pictures taken with Santa at East Boston Savings Bank. So it really, truly is a community event, and we're looking forward to continuing that tradition this year.
That's excellent. Thank you. Do we have anything more from Danvers Cares?
No, I think Lyle did a great job. I think we're good.
I think we're good. There's nothing from CPAC this month. Policy we've already discussed, so we're back to you with the
Nothing really.
Human
Just
rights.
a couple planning for a couple of upcoming events.
Okay, so we're good with that. Minutes.
Yes, I move to approve and release the minutes from the October 15th, 2018 regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Budget.
Before you have the monthly budget report for October, we're still on budget for the year. There's also attached is a draft of the town budget policy from the Board of Selectmen. It remains largely unchanged from past years, but if you have any feedback, we'd be happy to provide that to the board before they meet in December for approval.
Okay, and personnel.
Personnel, thankfully, a quiet month now that we're into the school year, and hopefully even quieter during the month of November when we report out in December.
Okay. And that is it. Next meeting is?
December 10th?
Okay, and there's also, what is the financial?
Fiscal Summit.
Fiscal Summit?
Thank you.
When is that?
December 4th, I believe.
December 4th.
Okay. And that's actually as part of the selectmen's meeting, correct? Is that going to be at the beginning of the selectmen's meeting? Do we know this?
I think so.
We were
Okay.
told it would be around 7 o'clock.
Okay. All right, great. All right, then I guess I could hear a motion to adjourn.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Good night, Danvers.